have to have a lot of passion for what you're doing. This rings true because it's so hard that if you don't, any rational person would give up. It's really hard, and you have to do it over a sustained period of time. So if you don't love it, and if you're not having fun doing it, you're gonna give up.
Welcome to another episode of Jonsuntitledpod podcast, a partner of MoshPitNation.com. This episode's guest is the man who bleeds for metal, Mr. Max Cavalera of Soulfly, Sepultura, Nailbomb, and Killer Be Killed. God, this guy just exudes metal. And someone else who exudes metal, Mr. Discuss Metal Dan himself, Mr. Daniel Terry. How are you doing today?
Oh, man. I've had a very mixed set of emotions the past 24 hours. I talked to Max Cavalera last night, and then had some family issues today, and actually having family issues while John was talking to Max Cavalera. And it's been a very weird mix of being upset about things, but then listening to a lot of Soulfly. So, I mean, I'd say all in all, it's a wash. Like, I'm feeling pretty good overall.
Yeah, and then also friend of the podcast, Mr. Josh Wilbur, also spoke to Max, I guess, right before I did. So you're potentially, if you're a fan of one, both, or all three of the podcasts mentioned, you're going to get a triple scoop of Mr. Cavalera.
Yeah, I mean, if you put them all three, because I think we all got about 20 to 30 minutes each.
Yep.
So you put all those together, you listen to them back to back, it's like one massive interview.
It will be interesting. I was telling Toomey, I go, knowing, like, I got to see your questions that you sent me earlier when I was working on mine, and you only really hit on one thing that was similar to mine. I don't know what Toomey's are, but I'm assuming maybe his and mine might be a little similar, but I think that's the fun thing about having three different people interview someone is that, you know, potentially you might have some overlap of answers, but for the most part, if I don't envision the three of us having really any common ground, really, maybe other than production on the new record. But outside of that, I don't see us both having, all three of us having any of the same stories. So I think that'll be kind of interesting to, as a fan of podcasting, as a fan of listening to these shows. I'm interested to see how varied our experiences were with the questions we all asked.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's kind of funny too, because, like, you know, he's doing tons of podcasts this week. You know, everybody knows that. And the funny part to me is that, you know, it's like, bam, there was us, then there was you, then there was Toomey. And it's like we're all talking to him, but, like, he probably has, like, no idea that, like, we're all friends and, you know, talk and right. Kind of coordinate, you know, with each other about stuff. And that's the fun part to me is that we, you know, especially with me and you, John, is we were able to kind of, I was like, well, here were my questions, you know, before your, you know, that way, if you're like, oh no, we're doing the exact same interview, you could deflect and change or, you know, or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
But no, I think it's really cool, man. And like I said, this was the first time I'd ever talked to Max, and so I definitely went into the interview in a bad mood because I had a whole bunch of stuff happen prior to that during the day. And then it's like literally talking to Max Cavalera for 20 minutes. I left him like, you know what? It's all pretty good.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. I think some of my coworkers know that I do a podcast. But I think it's one of those things, like, until you see someone doing it. Like, I remember as I was talking to Max, a kid that just started at our job walked by and then, like, saw me with a microphone and I was talking, and I kind of, like, shot him a look, like, what do you want? And then I see him try to look at my screen, which obviously it's not like Max is on the other end of my screen.
Right.
But when I got done, he was like, what were you doing? I was like, doing a podcast. And then he goes, oh, who are you talking to? I was like, Max Cavalera. And he goes, oh, what does he do? And I was just like,
seriously?
Kid's also, like, literally a kid, I think.
I was like, next you're going to ask me who James Hetfield is, you know?
Yeah, he made some joke one day about, I don't even remember what the fuck it was. But I just remember, like, looking at him and he made a joke or a reference to something, and I obviously had no frame of reference for what it was, and I was like, okay. And Then he comes back to me like 20 minutes later. He's like, "Do you watch insert whatever show?" And I was like, "No." And he was like, "Oh, well, it's like a show that's on Nickelodeon." And I was like, "Yeah, I definitely don't watch Nickelodeon, dude."
Yeah, you're like, all I do is do podcasts like all the time.
I mean, yeah, I mean that was the other funny thing is when he goes, "I don't know who Max Cavalera is." I was like, "Oh, that's okay. The dude's been making metal music as long as I've been alive."
Right.
Just
right.
Like your lifetime and mine combined are probably almost on par with how long he's been being a seminal, metal guy.
Right.
I think I would love to have Max back on and kind of do more of a just a fun chat. There's definitely probably half of the questions I wrote I didn't ask just because I think, and as you'll find, and you probably had the exact same experience, dude wasn't a slouch when it came to answering questions.
No, dude, he answered all of my questions. It's so weird. Like, he really, like, we don't normally get super insightful answers from people, and like that's not, but it's like Max has been doing interviews again like longer than me and John have been alive, so it's one of those like when because I'll ask him what I would think to be a pretty simplistic question and get like, if this was written down, it'd be like 4 or 5 paragraphs worth of answer, and it's all insightful and it's all on topic. It's not one of those, yeah, I wrote this song in a McDonald's. Hey, you know what I really like at McDonald's? The McChicken, because it's blah 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 blah. No, it's like always on topic, and it's, to me, like when people are like, what was it like talking to him? It was like talking to like this dude that that loves metal that just happens to be in a metal band, like that was my experience. And yeah, like even from I've heard most of John's conversation now, and it was the same thing. Like just a respect for the interviewer, number one, is the thing that I like the most about Max, but also just how insightful he was with his answers, and it just seemed like he really cared about the answers. It wasn't like, oh yeah, this new album sounds good. Yeah, it was a really great recording experience. Next question. Like it wasn't anything like that, and that's what I loved about both interviews. I can't wait to hear Toomey's, because I know it's going to be the same thing.
Yeah, and speaking of interviews and getting to them, let's get to this interview with Mr. Max Cavalera of Soulfly. So I have the pleasure this early afternoon of talking with Max Cavalera of Soulfly, who have a new record coming out this Friday, October 19th, via Nuclear Blast Records, called Ritual. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Good to be here.
I hope this comes across the way I wanted it to, but this album is a real motherfucker. I mean, it sounds so fucking good, and Josh Wilbur really, I think, helped you guys bring a side out of you that I don't think I've really heard in a while. Like, everything sounds exactly where it needs to be. So can you kind of talk to me a little bit about working with Josh?
Yeah, when I had the vision for this record, I was really kind of pondering how am I going to pull this off, because in one hand was the idea to bring back some of the elements of the early era of Soulfly that I really love, especially the groove and the tribal elements, And then the other side of it was to continue my my own exploration into extreme metal and death metal, thrash metal, black metal territory that I always loved, pushing the boundaries of Soulfly. Now, how we can do both things without losing our identity, that was the main thing. And I think Josh was the right guy, because he's a producer, but he's also a fan. And he came into the record as a fan, tried to make the record that he wanted to hear as a fan. I made the record that I wanted to hear as a fan of metal. Not particularly Soulfly, but metal in general. So I think because of those two elements coming together, we got the best of both worlds. And sonically sounds great. Josh did a great job. And I think the songs itself, the lyrics are cool. They work. The songs are cool, are in a good order. The album has a cool feeling overall. So yeah, I'm pretty excited, man. I think it's definitely a solid Soulfly record that I haven't done one of those in a long time. So it feels really good.
You know, it's interesting you say that because, you know, about the just kind of the whole product as a whole, like being a solid record start to finish, and I definitely agree with that. How much attention do you actually pay to the track order when it comes to putting out a record? Are you one of those that's a stickler for everything has its place, or just kind of let it kind of figure it out?
No, I'm a total freak on that. In fact, I go back and forth. I used to do that a lot with Monty when Monty was in Roadrunner. All the Sepultura stuff, all the Soulfly stuff we did together. Monty's still involved. And I kind of gave him a little bit a run-through of the track list, and he loved it. It was one of the first time he never really wanted to change anything. He liked everything the way it was. The only thing I was kind of not sure about it was the ending of the record with Soulfly. I wanted to leave Soulfly 11 out as a bonus track and have the record only be 9 songs.
Interesting.
But Josh kind of convinced me that Soulfly 11 was a really great ending for the record. I'm not sure. I don't know which one I like the best, with or without. But he kind of convinced me that we should leave it there and make for a cool, mellow ending of this record, which I think kind of worked too. Any record is not really my forte. I've never been that good at. I'm better at beginning of record, at starting record, than I am at ending. I mean, some of my records had crazy ending, like Roots had a 12-minute, drum jam. I think like Soulfly 1 is really long. Had that hidden track from Brazil. So I'm not that good at ending, but I thought it was. I see his point, making the melodic ending. It is kind of like, it's a little bit like Pantera with Planet Caravan,
right?
When they ended the record with Planet Caravan, that was kind of cool. So I think that has the kind of same vibes, the same kind of feeling, which I think is kind of cool.
Well, it's kind of funny you bring up the whole ending the album with Soulfly 11. Something I've kind of wondered with other bands that I've talked to that have a carrying theme, a song that is kind of a carry-on from album to album. I was gonna say, like, how do you go about writing these Soulfly 1 through 11s now? Like, do you set out to do them? Do they kind of happen naturally, and then I guess that you kind of spoke to this. Do you ever see a time where you're like, yeah, I'm just, eventually I'm gonna be done doing this. I don't want to do another Soulfly 12 or 13 or 14.
I probably will keep it as a tradition, just because it really fits the tradition of the first one that started as an accident. And as much as sometimes it's kind of hard to pull off something different because so much has been done already, we still managed to do. I think Soulfly Archangel, Soulfly 10, was really cool with the duduk instrument for Armenia. That was kind of really world music more than anything else. And it was even that melodic. It was more like dark. But we had some really cool melodic ones. I think Soulfly 5 was one of my favorites with this. It was Dark Ages. We recorded it's like 10 minutes long. It's got bells from Russia on it, flamenco, Mark playing flamenco on it. Sounds brain and stuff. It's like really cool. Like, it was really well put together. No, I kind of look forward to them, but it's kind of a challenge. I don't know what I'm going to do for Soulfly 12. It's too early to start thinking about that. But it's always kind of. This one was really fun because I already had the original guitar riff was from 25 years ago. I was still in Sepultura when I wrote that. It was around Chaos AD on a 4-track. In fact, I think I wrote that in Australia, as far as I remember, if I remember right. And staying on my machine, 4-track forever, and I never bother. And this time around, I was like, oh, I got that. Let's bring that out, Josh heard it, he loved it, and he wanted to keep the original recording. He didn't want me to re-record it over. So what you hear on the track is the original guitar. Kind of sound a little bit like Metallica, a little bit like Fade to Black.
Yeah.
Type stuff, it's like real melodic. But then he put all the drum machine on top of it, the drum loops, and then when we put the saxophone on top of it, which is done by his friends from the Pretty Reckless, it was cool, man. I love when the sax came in. I think that put it all together like really jazzy, made it kind of a really, really ambient kind of sounding track, So I'm stoked with it. I think it came out pretty good.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised that when the sax came in, it kind of gave me a very cinematic feel to it, and it reminded me actually, and I hope you take this as a compliment, not like a down play or anything, but it reminded me of like something, a cinematic opening to something like a early 90s movie, like a Lethal Weapon or something, where you're getting a lot of, story real quickly and kind of catching up with what's going on, and here's this kind of interesting music. And to me, it's like, that's kind of the thing I've enjoyed about all the Soulfly songs, is that they take you into these completely different places, and this one, kind of has more of, to me, a cinematic feel to it, with the guitar leads and the sax lead and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's been something that's been a rather interesting thing about every record, is seeing what you're going to do to end the record out for these Soulfly songs. Yeah,
and I totally don't take that bad at all. I love Lethal Weapon. But it does have that kind of 80s kind of feeling of saxophone, I mean, it's inspired by really kind of sax stuff like Peter Gabriel or Paul Simon. They had a lot of cool saxophone parts. And saxophone, when it's done right, it's beautiful. It's really, really kind of like a vibe. It's a vibe thing, when it hits the right notes at the right time, it's killer. It's perfect. And I think this one does that. The guy who hit the right notes right at the right time, and doesn't really try to do too much. It just kind of blends in with the tune. So I was very, very pleased, because I remember first asking Josh for a sax player. I almost had a heart attack. He's like, I don't know anybody. How the fuck am I going to do that, We already, over budget, right? We spent all the money. We don't have any money for this record, There's nothing that... And I'm still asking him to find a saxophone player, Thank God he's friends with the Pretty Reckless guy, and he came in and did it, and it was cool. So I'm glad that the whole thing turned out the way it did. But yeah, because I was listening to the track without it, it was finished, and the track was done, and we were going to release just like that. And I was like, man, I don't know. It's like, it's just plain. You need something else, man. You need an extra. And then, in my crazy mind, I thought of it, saxophone, that's what you need, like that little fucking jazzy kind of feeling, So I'm glad they work out pretty good, and, everybody feels cool about it. And I think it's really interesting, this whole Soulfly melodic song. I thought I was going to catch a lot more hell for doing that by the fans. I thought I was like, man, a lot of them are going to hate it, and I shouldn't even put it on the record. I should just leave it as a B-sides. If they don't want it, if they want, they can get it. If they don't want it, don't worry about it. It's not going to be on the record. To my surprise, there's more people that really like that stuff than I can even count. It's crazy, the amount of people that... There's even one case that really kind of freaked me out. It was in Europe, and it was a lady that had cancer, going to cancer treatment, and she heard on her treatment, she listened to the Soulfly melodic songs to make her feel better for the cancer treatment. And that is like, wow, that's heavy. That's like, when I wrote those songs, I wasn't even thinking about stuff like that. It's like that's a whole nother realm of the music can do that I'm not even cannot even comprehend. But she say it really helped her with her treatment and stuff. So that's really, really cool, man, to hear that.
Yeah, most definitely. Kind of shifting gears a little bit, and speaking to, having a guest musician on the Soulfly 11, something that I felt like you have always done in Soulfly's career is kind of have the who's who of people guesting on your albums. And this album's no different, and I kind of wanted to focus, because it's a two-part question. When you write these songs, so many of them sound like it could have been this person's band's song that you're having them guest on. So do you write with these people in mind, or is it just kind of a happy accident that you just write these songs and then go, holy shit, Randy from Lamb of God would sound great on this, and it just because it happens to fit that person's style?
Well, Randy is a total accident. Like when I wrote that Behind the Eyes, I had no idea he was going to sing on it at all. It was just a song on the album. In fact, it's kind of the song that my son was asking me about. He's been listening to a lot of old Sepultura records like Schizophrenia and Beneath the Remains. He was asking me questions about these records, like how you write a song like that, like how you write Septischizo, like Rest in Pain and, Escape to the Void and Slaves of Pain. How you write this fucking killer, fast trash song with all these fucking parts and so cool, man, and I was like, well, I tell you what, like, you want to do one with me? We'll do it together, we will build this thing on like father and son building a rocket ship, like building a toy together, that was the same approach I took with it. Like, this is me and him doing it together, and we did from the beginning. I collect all the riffs for it. I made all the parts. I made the chorus. I made the ending, even the lead part, which is really a lot of thought went into that because there's a whole rhythm section behind the lead part, and we executed. And then when it was all done, Josh was going to see Randy for the Burn the Priest album, and I kind of just joking with Josh, say, hey man, show Randy some stuff on this album if he wants to sing on anything. That would be cool. And I thought maybe he would have picked a different song, like Bite the Bullet or one of the tribal songs. And Randy picked that Behind the Eyes. I guess the minute he heard that, he loved it. And I think it's great, and I love it. And I think it's so funny. I hear some of the comments, and people say, it sounds like a Lamb of God song, It's just it's like, man, I didn't wrote with that intention at all. Now, Ross is different. I wrote for him. So,
okay.
Yeah. Fuck yeah. I was listening to a lot of Immolations, a lot of fucking death metal, you can tell by the riffs, they have that kind of evil.
Yeah.
The blast beat riffs, super evil. The first part of the riff is almost like an old Morbid Angel part from Altar of Madness or something. And I was, imagine Ross singing on this part. And my favorite thing is when he says rapture, with a heavy voice.
Right.
When he goes into the little tremolo picking with the guitar. Fuck yeah, man. It's like earth-shattering. It's fucking so good. And I love Ross's vocals. I'm a big Immolation fan. I met Ross in 91 in New York with Sepultura. And I'm so glad our paths crossed again so many years later, touring with the Roots, the Return to Roots tour, Immolation Full of Hell. We got to become friends again, and I invited him to be on the record. The funny thing, I didn't told him, I haven't officially asked him, but I did an interview with Blabbermouth or something, and I said that he was going to sing on the album, and he didn't know. And so he read it before he even knew that it... So he read that in the interview, and then he called me, like, what's going on, man? I'm on your record? I was like, oh, yeah, shit, man, I forgot to tell you. Can you be on the new Soulfly record? It was totally retarded, Max, just being an idiot. But I'm so glad we did it, and it was a lot of fun. And I can't wait to perform any of those two songs live. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be, awesome.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to actually speak about Dead Behind the Eyes as well. Because maybe I'm misunderstanding the lyrics or kind of whatever, because all I get is just the album as it is, no lyrics or anything. But I feel like hear a reference to Cenobites, which obviously is from Hellraiser. So is it safe to say this is sort of inspired maybe by the Hellraiser movie?
Oh yeah, big time. You know, when I started working with this song was called Cenobites.
Okay.
The original nickname was Bruiser Brothers, but that was just the funny nickname we gave in the studio. It became Cenobites, and I was reading a lot, watching a lot of Hellraiser. I love the movie. I love the characters, Pinhead and all the creepy fucking guys. Like I love the whole world that Clive Barker created. All the Hell Priests. The whole thing is fucking freaky and scary and crazy. And then the whole pleasure and pain thing too is awesome. Especially the guy with the chains and goes, Jesus wept and explodes. I mean, that part is, I rewinded probably like 20 times, like, fuck yeah, this part is great. But then I did a little bit of research on Cenobites itself, and I found out they're actually a religious sect from years and years ago. Back in the Greek times, they were like monks that used to self-immolate and hurt themselves in the name of religion, and a lot of it's still going on today in some parts of the world, So that was kind of cool because I kind of put both two and two together. It was like the lyrics is about Cenobites from Hellraiser, but also from Cenobites, the monks itself, the original, probably the original place where Clive Barker got the idea is from these monks. I would assume that, and that's why there's like the lyrics like, no pain, walk on fire, Cenobites, I know your kind, you're dead behind the eyes. Now that's totally Hellraiser, dead behind the eyes, like the evil incarnation of those things, And in the slow part, I think I even say Hellraiser.
Yeah, that's what kind of tipped me to be like.
I give the total. I just give it out. I give out the secret right there. It came from Hellraiser for sure. Yeah, I love doing this kind of movie songs. The other one was Voodoo of the Godsend for the Metal Allegiance. That was based on Serpent and the Rainbow, another movie I really love. Wes Craven nightmare voodoo movie. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but if you haven't, you gotta check it out. This movie's fucking insane. Haitian voodoo and fucking amazing.
Yeah, with that song, and I thought I had remembered you doing another song, which I guess you just confirmed that there was sort of something else that you've done inspired by another movie. So it kind of made me wonder, have you ever thought of just as a fun project, maybe doing a loosely concept record based around, horror movie themes or whatever, and doing like you did with this, with Dead Behind the Eyes?
That would be really cool. Something like that, all inspired by either horror movies or my favorite movies or something, that, because I done a lot of songs inspired by that, because, Red War from Pro Ball was inspired by this movie, The Man Who Became, like a really old from the 70s kind of movie. Jeffrey Dahmer, of course, inspired by a lot of Jeffrey Dahmer documentaries and stuff. So yeah, man, for sure that's a great idea. I'm gonna keep that idea in mind. That's a killer.
Something I wanted to talk about is, I think it's safe to say that you've been known for being a family man in every sense of the word with the band and so forth. Your son's in the band. You've done, projects with your brother. Your wife is your manager. What is it about having family so closely related to your projects that appeals to you?
Well, I think it comes from my home in Brazil, how we started, because my mom was heavily involved in everything. She was even our manager for a while, before we had, Gore, and everybody was back in the Brazilian days. It's like more divisions days, We had a house that was always metal-oriented, meaning there was always people in my house, from metalheads from different parts of Brazil, who come and stay in my house. My house was almost like a hotel, like a metal hotel. Andreas lived there for a long time when he joined the band.
Okay.
So I took it from that and made it a new twist on it with my new life that I created here in Phoenix, Arizona, with my own family, which is really big. You know, I adopted 5 kids and have 2 kids of my own, so it's a big fucking family, you know. And we work with all of them, which is great, man. You know, like Zion plays drums for Soulfly. You know, Gloria does the managing. You know, Richie goes on tour with us in January with Insight. Igor has Lodi Kong with his brother. Sometimes they go on tour with us. Sometimes some of them do crew work. You know, my stepson Jason was a bass crew in the last tour. We are a full metal family, and I love it. And it's not fake. You know, not a put together family, metal family fake just for the hell of it. It's for real. You know, we are real, truly a metal family that loves the works, and everybody loves helping, doing stuff with it. And I love it, man. I think it's great. It's how I always wanted to have this. And that's why from the beginning I never hid from the fans the fact that I was a family man. You know, I started from Chaos, Zion's Heartbeat opening Chaos AD, then having the kids' hands on Soulfly 3. Their chants are in many of the Soulfly records, like Mulambo and Last of the Mohicans. So family is huge, man, and we are a true cool metal family that I love it, you know, and it's cool because my house is there's always some noise, you know, like my son will be listening to death metal in his room, real loud. I fucking love that. You know, I walk by, I open the door, like, what are you listening to, man? You know. Sometimes Gloria's in the kitchen cooking, and she's blasting Lodi Kong and Insight and Soulfly while she's cooking. Which is cool, man. You know, there's a cool vibe here in the house. There's a cool metal vibe in the family house, which is really cool.
And then kind of my last 2 questions for you. You know, you've celebrated some very iconic albums, you know, with you guys doing the Roots record and the Nailbomb first album. I was kind of pleasantly surprised. I mean, obviously you're probably working on this new record, but I was sort of surprised to see that you didn't celebrate the first Soulfly record turning 20 this year. Was there any thoughts of doing that?
That was a little bit went on, but then I decided to celebrate by making a new record. That was kind of the twist on top of it, you know. So instead of going out and playing the first record, which we could have done it. We'll probably even get some of the members to do it. Maybe Lucio would have come back, and we could get Roy to do it. I decided to do something kind of that moves more to the future, which is making a new record, you know, and
right.
the new record be influenced by the first record. So that was kind of my twist on it. But, yeah, I still love the idea. I still think it's possible to do it at some point later, you know. We're doing Beneath the Remains and Arise in South America next week. We did it in Russia. People lose their shit. They lost their minds. It was fucking great. So many great songs, man. It's so cool to play, you know, Slaves of Pain and Infected Voice and Primitive Future, the underdog songs that nobody talks about it, you know. Of course, the main songs are always great, but to me, the real fun was playing, you know, Infected Voice. It was like, whoa, shit. We never even got to play this in Sepultura, I don't think, you know. Never even put that on a set list ever before. The songs rips, man. They're a killer, you know. So that was really fun. So I look forward to do more of that.
And then kind of just a fun last couple minutes while I got you. I'm here in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and I know you are a Lions fan, which I think is pretty interesting because out of all the teams you could pick, even your Arizona Cardinals there, the fact that you are a Lions fan is just, I think it's a very metal football team to like, the underdog that pretty much never wins.
Exactly. You know, in fact, when I picked them, which was about 10 years ago, you know, everybody told me, don't pick them. They never win. Get ready to lose. Get ready to lose. And I'm like, you know what? That suits me, man. You know, I love the underdog story. I love, but I know that one of these days they're gonna do it. I just know it. You know, I don't know. Maybe not this year. We're not quite there yet, but It's coming, man. It's coming. It's gonna happen.
What do you think of the changes that the organization has tried making in the last couple of years? I think this has been the biggest upside I've seen in probably the last decade plus.
I'm optimistic actually. I think I think it's going. We beat Patriots and we beat Green Bay.
I know.
We haven't really done those things in years,
No.
That's huge. That's huge. And then we lost some stupid games, but I think we gotta correct that and make it more stable. That's the thing that bugs me about the Lions. It's not consistent. I mean, we go in and we beat the Packers, and we beat the Patriots, and then we lose to the Jets in the first blowout of the year, man. What the fuck is going on here? Even the Dallas game, we should have won that, man. That
Should've.
Dallas game was I know it was the last minute field goal type shit that I hate when it happens in football, unless it's my team doing the field goal,
Right.
But yeah, I think it's cool, man. I think it's a good team. I love this new guys, Kerryon Johnson. I mean, it's great.
Oh man, he's so good.
Day, Marvin Jones. Stafford got some weapons, man, for sure.
Have you been able to catch a game this season? Are you going to be able to?
Yeah, they're actually going to play the Cardinals here in December. I'm going to go to it.
It's funny. I'm going to see them in December as well, but sitting outside in Buffalo.
Yeah, so I'm excited for that. I actually been trying to. My wife has been trying to contact somebody. Hopefully, one of them are a metal fan that we can hopefully make some kind of friendship or something. Because I've been to Ford Field. I did a tour there.
Yeah.
And it was great. I had my son with me. We walked on a field, took pictures. It was killer. It was a great day. We're hoping that somebody in the organization that can help us out, hopefully, so we can find somebody out of those 30 guys. One must be a metal fan,
Right.
That,
I always think it'd be really cool if you could somehow do a Lions theme or something that they end up playing.
Right, something like that, or a Lions guitar or something. That'd be really cool.
Yeah. And kind of been wrapping up, I always like to end these episodes out with a song, but before I have you pick a song, where can everyone find you guys and or the band?
All the normal things in Soulfly Tribe, Instagram, Nuclear Blast, Gloria Cavalera Facebook, Soulfly.com, all this, they can get our stuff, information from us on all of those outlets,
And then, as I said, I'd like to end these out with a song. If there's anything you would like me to end it out to, what would you like me to play it to?
I like Red War from Probot. I thought that was really cool. Kind of reminded me of Territory a little bit. It was a cool project. Dave Grohl playing drums. That song was always had a good spot in my heart. I think it came out really killer, and it's a cool metal track from a very cool project.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, Max, thank you so much for taking the time, and I know you guys just announced a tour, I think, in the last 24 hours, so hopefully try to catch the date you have in Michigan, even though I don't know where exactly you guys are playing.
Right on, brother. Nice talking to you, man.
You as well. Thank you very much.
Take care.
So that was my chat with Mr. Max Cavalera of Soulfly, Sepultura, Nailbomb, Killer Be Killed. The list goes on. And, I thought that was a pretty fun conversation. Something I try to strive to do with these chats and some of the questions I ask is not necessarily keep it onto any one thing, but kind of have a nice spectrum of a lot of stuff. So you kind of feel like if it's only 30 minutes, it feels like way more. And that's something I've noticed that Dan has actually kind of made me more aware of, that I guess I tend to do pretty much all the time.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely felt like more than 30 minutes listening to it, but not like in a painful way. Not like, oh my God, when is this going to be over? But just the time flies. Like we were saying before in the intro earlier, that he'd give such long answers to things, but it wasn't boring. It was always interesting stuff. Like I really liked how, you know, he got into, like, because I had no idea that on at Soulfly 11, you know, that he um that was actually, like, he wrote that 25 years ago.
Yeah, that was pretty fucking wild. And I felt kind of like a dick saying that it gave me strong Lethal Weapon vibes.
I was chuckling because I was listening to that in the car, and I was just chuckling, and I was like, oh my god, like I totally get where he's coming from
Yeah.
on that. It's like saying that to the artist, because I definitely had the same feeling when I heard that song, that like I was like, I feel like I'm watching a movie, like, you know, and they're playing like a montage of whatever's happened in like the previous two movies or something, you know.
Yeah.
And like, as cheesy as all that sounds, it's cool, you know.
Yeah, no, it was pretty cool. And I mean, like, even the whole thing, I mean, it's kind of funny because I feel like anybody who is big into music usually is probably big onto movies and so forth and draws parallels. So, I mean, and that it even speaks to the whole point of Behind Dead Eyes, you know, with the whole Cenobite Hellraiser thing. But Max gave me a fucking history lesson on as to where Cenobites came from.
Yeah, I know, that was pretty cool. He talked about that with our chat last night as well.
Oh yeah.
Talked a lot, yeah, about us, because I asked him about lyrics, because I'm a big lyrics guy. I was like, you know, your lyrics are always really great. What are you gonna talk to us about in this new album, you know, Ritual? And he immediately went into the Cenobites thing. And it's funny because, you know, being around Halloween, every year around Halloween I watch like 3 or 4 Hellraiser movies, usually the older ones, and so I was like, it was like, dude, you read my mind. Like, yeah, of course.
The thing that kills me about those Hellraisers is is it the third one that basically undoes the 2 movies before it? I don't know. Semantics at that point. I just remember each one seemingly just distances itself further from the movie that came before. It's almost like, it's like if I were to make Hellraiser 1 and 2, and then you were to make 3, but only off of what someone told you it was about, and then you're like, go. I feel like that's how that franchise has progressed, where you're just like, what the fuck is going on? It's basically, I remember catching 1, I think it's like 6 or 7, and I was like, this just feels like a Skinamax movie with Pinhead in the corner like a dirty cuck.
Right. Oh my god, that's hilarious. But yeah, no, they've ruined Pinhead pretty bad. Like, this previous summer I watched the newest Hellraiser movie. I don't remember what it's called, but it's like a Hellraiser movie in 2018. And yeah, it was like putrid and gross and weird or whatever, but like, it's so out of touch with what Hellraiser was as a franchise.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I mean, Pinhead's in there, you know, but he's not like the same, because like the Cenobites, and I haven't read the lyrics yet to the new Soulfly song about Cenobites, but my understanding is that Cenobites were basically like not good or evil. They were just people that experienced different experiences. And like, that was the whole thing. But like, some of the experiences that they sought were like horrifying, you know?
Well, as it was, okay, so I guess maybe Max didn't explain this part to you then. So as he was kind of saying, they are from, I believe he said, ancient Greek times, and that basically they were part of a civilization.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. It almost made it seem like he didn't go down that whole rabbit hole with you.
He did actually, but it was you know, he did, but like I said, he said so much about it that I'm gonna have to re-listen to that interview to even remember some of his answers to his questions, because like, I remember the high points and all that, and you know, I mean, I've been a podcaster for a little while now, but like, there's still a certain sense of like, holy shit, I'm talking to Max Cavalera that, you know, was in my brain during that whole interview. Because it's a big deal for me. Like, I'm a fanboy. Like, people can say, you know, whatever they want to say about Max and, you know, whatever, but like, at the end of the day, like, this dude has been in my headphones my whole life, basically, you know?
Yeah.
And to finally get to ask him questions and him actually answer my questions and stuff, that's huge. So yeah, he did go into that about the Cenobites and the history, and he really perked my interest on some of these songs, because there's one about a girl who was basically the victim of police brutality and how the police had no,
I think that one was the bite the bullet. I think was that one.
Bite the bullet, I believe. Yeah. And we talked about that too for a little while, and like it's just blowing my mind how a band like Soulfly, like at this point, like a guy like Max at this point in his career, can go from something kind of more like fantasy horror, like Cenobites, to like real world issues, like just like that, like it's nothing. And I don't know, I can't wait to crack open the lyrics. This is definitely going to be a vinyl buy for me.
Yeah, no, it was definitely a really good listen. It's a really strong record all the way through, and something that I thought was kind of fun, kind of lastly touching on the whole, Cenobite type thing. I had asked him, would you be interested in maybe doing a concept record based around horror movies that you're into or whatever, since you're able to, because like he ended up saying he's done one other song based around a movie like that, and it was kind of cool to hear him really just sit with it for a minute and be like, well, yeah, I think that'd be a lot of fun. I never thought about doing something like that. So it's almost like, I almost immediately, as soon as he said like he might do that next or soon, I was almost going to be like, can I get a sort of writing credit for coming up with the idea for you to do it?
Right.
I just want that producer credit.
That's your staple, man. You give people ideas, they run with it, they give you credit.
I steal it.
It all works out.
Taking it from Josta, man. You got to have one pitch every episode.
Every time. Got to hustle, hustle, hustle.
Yeah, that's right. Maybe I'll have a D. Snyder record out next year.
Sounds good to me, man. Maybe. I go back and forth on that, whether I'm excited about that or not.
It's pretty good. It's out.
Yeah, no, I've
okay.
I've heard it, but my statement still stands.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, speaking of things that I think will stand, I think this new record, Ritual, I think it's going to stand up against a lot of the other Soulfly material. I mean, like Max said in the very beginning, he wanted to go back to the grooves, and there are a fuckload of catchy grooves on this. The drums are good. Josh, I think, Josh Wilbur, that is, he's been producing for a while now, but I think, like, Josh is really coming into his own with his mixing style and has found a really good complementary style for metal where, like, the drums are punchy, they sound really great, but nothing is fighting for space. Everything fits exactly where I feel like it's supposed to be. Like, you can hear all the little nuances of Mark and his crazy, solos, which, I mean, I didn't get to talk about that with Max, but holy shit, Mark Rizzo on this record is just a stupidly underrated guitar player, and if you didn't know that for whatever fucking reason, then this record is going to show you so much of what this dude can do. Zion, I don't know how you pronounce Zion, yeah. The drums this kid's playing on this record sound fucking great. There's some really good, nice double bass patterns and a lot of cool just drum fills and stuff that I was pretty impressed with. I mean, there's even a fucking flute on this record. There's saxophones and a flute.
Yeah, the flute. The flute was definitely out of nowhere. But you know what, man? If you've been listening to Soulfly this long and you're weirded out by a flute, like, you might need to check out a different band, because there's always weird instruments on Soulfly albums, and you're never really expecting them. But we kind of all should be at this point. Well,
that was the fun thing about the whole sax thing. That story about how they had already gone way over budget.
Right, he's like, dude, we are out of money for recording this. He's like, hold on. I'll have my buddy come in and do it. And he was from the Pretty Reckless, right? Yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah, no, it was definitely another unexpected story that and that's the great thing about just letting people who have great stories like that. Like, I think Max should have his own fucking podcast where you just sit down with Max and have him tell you stories of like the last 30 some odd years of him being in a band. But if you would like to keep up with Max and the rest of the Soulfly camp, their new record, Ritual, comes out this Friday in 2 days as of when you're hearing this. Go pick it up. Like I said, and like we've been saying, it's a really solid record. This might actually make its way into my top records of the year. And I've only had it for a couple of days, but I kept going back to the whole thing. It'd be done, and I'd be like, again. And I think it's there's a lot of cool nuances to it. The guest vocalist spots and everything are fucking great. Yeah, so go catch them. If you would like to keep up with them, you can go to basically Facebook, Twitter, and all that stuff. It's just at Soulfly Tribe. If you would like to go to soulfly.com, simple enough. Max, I don't believe, has anything, but again, you can go to Gloria Cavalera on Facebook, I believe, and probably everywhere else. And I know from following her on Facebook, she posts a lot of live footage of the Soulfly guys when they're playing. So if you like to see behind-the-scenes stuff like that, that's a good follow. And Dan, where can people follow you?
You can follow me on Twitter at DiscussMetalDan. You can follow me on Facebook under Daniel Terry. And you can find my other podcast, Discography Discussion, at DiscussMetal.com. Who
have a new episode coming out probably by the time you're hearing this with Max Cavalera.
It's out right now.
Oh, well, fuck you.
Yeah.
And if you would like to keep up with our partners over at Moshpit Nation, you can over at moshpitnation.com. Facebook is Moshpit Nation West Capital MI. Twitter and Instagram are simply Moshpit Nation. And if you would like to keep up with our show's sponsor, The Bean Bastard, you can do such at thebeanbastard.com. The Bean Bastard on Facebook and Instagram. And Dan's going to tell you real quickly about 5-star rating and reviewing.
Oh my goodness, 5-star reviews are the bread and butter of podcasts. If we're your favorite podcast, leave us a 5-star review. It's a no-brainer. It helps us out. It doesn't cost you anything. It only costs you maybe 2 or 3 minutes of your time, if even that. But we really appreciate the ratings. The ratings actually help us get exposure too. We will show up in search results a lot higher up whenever you're searching for like music podcast or interview podcast or like if you type in Max Cavalera. We have a much higher likelihood of showing up if we're a highly rated podcast. So if there's something you feel like you could be doing for the podcast to help us out, literally the best thing you could do is to rate, review, and subscribe.
And if you would like to help us out monetarily, you can become a show sponsor. You can email us at jonsuntitledpod@gmail.com. Another way you can support the podcast monetarily, if so inclined, is by going to Patreon, patreon.com/JonsuntitledPodcast, and checking out some of the perks that we have. $1 will get you a shout-out on these episodes, so I'll go ahead and shout out our first patron, Sarah Schneider. Thanks for being a patron. Hopefully you're enjoying those bonus episodes that Dan and I have recorded. And if you would like a shout-out and or would like to hear the bonus episodes we've done, head over there. We're doing cool stuff. So go ahead and do it right now when you're done with this.
Easy.
It's
just
that
head
easy.
over there.
And if you would like to keep up with all things the podcast, you can do such over on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, as long as it is not down, at Johnson Title Podcast. And on Twitter, it's Johnson Title Pod. And email us at jonsuntitlepod@gmail.com. And we are going to end this episode as we always do. And as you heard Max say, he wanted me to play it out to Red War off of the Probot record, taking it old school. I think it's a really criminally underrated record, actually, that Probot record that Dave Grohl put together some of the best musicians in rock and metal and all that and hardcore. And so much so, Max loves this song so much so that actually sometimes it makes its way into the Soulfly live set. So, again, we're going to end it out to Red War by Probot, and we will talk to you next time.